children, how are you today? Well, today Mama Hadithi has a very interesting story for you. Something that will make you think. Next time, when you're given chores to do or somebody asks you to do something and many other interesting and more exciting things come along, remember to think first. Once upon a time, a long time ago, in a distant land, on a little hill somewhere on the foothills of Mount Kenya, there was a little girl called Nyokabi. And she was a really adorable little girl. She always listened to her mom and she did all her chores. But on this special day, when her mom asked her to go fetch water, she decided she would take a shortcut. And do you know why? Because she could hear her friends playing out in the distance. And she knew this was the day that all the children used to gather around and play into the night. So she went with her shortcut. We call them panya roots. Those are little routes that you don't have to go all the way down the road, down the hill, up the hill, down the hill again until you get to the river. There was a little panya route that she could take. The only problem with panya routes is sometimes they were a little bit risky, and on this day it was particularly risky. You know why? It had rained, so the panya route was very slippery and very muddy, because that's not the route that the people are supposed to take to get to the river. It's just a route that they take when it's dry and they can take a shortcut. So she took that route and she was very careful because she had her favorite pot. This pot was beautiful with all different colors and shapes, different flowers painted on it. And she actually painted most of the flowers herself. Well, on her way she went, and she could feel how slippery it was getting because the rain was not easing out. But she knew she had to get back to the playing that her friends were doing. So she took her time all the way down until she finally got to the river, and she said, I knew this would work. And she saved a lot of time going on that panya route. And so on her way up with her pot full of water, she decided to take the panya route back. She had already saved herself a lot of time, and maybe it would have been better to go with the long route all the way up the hill and down the hill and up the hill and down the hill and up the hill and back to her village. But no, Nyokabi wanted to get there as fast as she could and spend more time with her friends. So off she went on that panya route, and as she was climbing up the steep parts, her foot slipped and the pot fell and broke into a million pieces. And she was heartbroken. She couldn't believe it. This was her favorite pot. She knew her mom won't be happy because of what happened, but she was more heartbroken because this was her favorite pot. She had it for 4 years. And she was heartbroken and ran all the way up, slipping, sliding, falling, and she got home, mud everywhere. And in her hands, she held a few pieces of the pot. And she was crying, and her mom came and grabbed her and held her tight and said, what happened? What happened? What happened? Did you see an animal? What happened? Did somebody do something to you? And she opened her hands, and there were the pieces of her beautiful, colorful pot, broken. And her mama said, oh, Nyokabi, what happened? What happened? Tell me. Tell mama. And she told her the story. And she told her mama, instead of going the long road that's flat and safe, I decided to take the panya route so that I can save time and come back and play with my friends. And her mama said, today you've learned a very important lesson. Sometimes when you have something to do Don't think about doing it fast and then getting to the next thing, because sometimes you might not get to that next thing because of your haste. So think. And so she looked down, and her mama clasped her hands and said, you know what, keep those pieces, keep them in your room, put them in another little pot, and remember, let them be something for you to remember. Sometimes hurry doesn't help. So she went, she took the pieces, put them by her bedside, and she said, Mama, can you give me one of your pots and I'll go back to the river and fetch some water? The mama said, thank you. And she gave her one pot, and that pot was brown. It had burnt on the bottom because the mama had used it many times to boil water. And so it had charcoal marks all over the bottom. It wasn't pretty, but it still could fetch water. So she went all the way up the hill and down the hill, up the hill and down the hill, up the hill and down the hill, all the way to the river. That was a safe path, and she got there. She fetched water, came back home, gave it to her mom, but by that time, there were no children playing outside. It was too late. She was very sad because she missed two things. First, she missed to get her mom the first pot of water that she requested. Second, she missed to play, and that was her that was the biggest thing she wanted to do. She couldn't do it. So when she went to sleep that night, she slept and looked at those pieces and remembered, sometimes trying to do things in a hurry won't help. Take your time, be slow, do it right, and you'll be happy. You might not get other things that you were hoping for, but still you did something and did it well and did it right. Guess what? Few months later, in the morning, when Nyokabi woke up just like usual and had to do the chores, the first thing she had to do was go fetch water. So now she didn't even question, always took the long, safe path. All the way up the hill and down the hill and up the hill and down the hill and up the hill and down the hill, all the way to the river. Put the pot on her head, full of water, and sang her way back home. When she got home, she couldn't believe her eyes. It was still very early in the morning. The sun had hardly risen, and right there in front of her mama's hut, she saw the most beautiful pot. She had never seen anything like that. It had the same colors like her old pot, the same colors. And guess what? It had her name signed on it. And she looked and she turned it around and she lifted it and she thought, but this is for me? And her mama came out and shouted, surprise! Happy birthday, Nyokabi! Happy birthday! And they hugged each other, and the mama and Nyokabi had tears in their eyes because they were so happy. Both of them were very happy. Nyokabi had been a very patient girl, and she always remembered by looking at those pieces that sometimes it's not about rushing. It's about doing it right and sometimes doing it slow. So there you go. Let's all be like Nyokabi. Slow but sure will definitely get you there. Okay? Let's not break any beautiful pots today. Bye-bye. Kwaheri.